The attacks that this president has faced since the day that he won the election in November of 2016 have been unprecedented. A big part of what we outline in this book is how the intelligence community went after the president through the Pfizer application process and those individuals who worked on the campaign because they simply disagreed with his political philosophy. And that should be a very scary thing for every American.
There's Corey Lewandowski laying out his argument on Fox News Sunday, talking about his new book with David Bossie. The authors claim there are dozens inside the White House working against the agenda of the president. It's called Trump's Enemies, How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency. And with me now, Governor John Sununu, former White House Chief of Staff to President George H.W. Bush. How you doing, Governor? And I hope hope your turkey break was great. Now it's back to work. What do you think of, you know a lot of people who worked in the West Wing and went on to write books. What's the incentive to do that?
Well, certainly one incentive is to sell books. But I have to say I'm not a great fan of books written while the president is still in office. I waited 25 years to write mine and made sure my president was happy with me writing it. But Corey and Dave have written one. Now this is their second one. I'm sure it will get a lot of visibility, a lot of talk, a lot of interest, but I'm not sure how far it advances the ball in terms of the president's agenda.
Well, sometimes you want to send a message, and I think a lot of this book is trying to send a message to John Kelly. But here's how the New York Times wrote it up. Maggie Haberman, her headline, "New book gives voice to Trump's claims of a vast conspiracy against him." I'll read just one paragraph she wrote. The book has caused anxiety among Trump's aides for weeks as they anticipated Mr. Lewandowski and Mr. Bossie, here we go, would use it to harm some of them with the president after a bruising midterm election cycle. What do you think of that premise?
Well, Bill, I haven't read the book yet, so I admit that, and I'm talking on speculation and on the basis of speculation in a couple of news articles. I think they're rather pointed. I've seen, from what I've seen, about a couple of folks in there, including the Chief of Staff, John Kelly. Look, everything that comes out of a White House is always related to some kind of a factual incident, exaggerated greatly to make the point that the individual wants to make. And I think you should look at this book in that context. There's a point they want to make. There's a factual basis somewhere in there on all the incidents. But without a doubt, Corey and Dave are very good at putting the emphasis on the right syllable and getting the message they want across.
That's cute. And they still have context, too. Here's a quote from the president. When asked whether or not he thought that President Obama was aware of the surveillance during 2016. Personally, I think he knew, yeah, just remember what they did. Let me put it this way. If the shoe were on the other foot and the same thing happened to him, it would be treason and they'd be locked up for 100 years, end quote. There you go, Governor.
Well, there's lots of evidence that the intelligence community was, one way or the other, doing more in following the Trump campaign than they were in following the Clinton campaign. There had to be a reason for it. It is probably correct that it was the internal bias of the White House and the agencies and the FBI at the time. And so there certainly is strong factual basis for that conclusion. And the president's right. If a Republican had done that to a Democrat, there'd be all hell to pay.
You waited 25 years, huh, to write your book? 25.
I did, but it really came out very, very well, Bill.
Indeed it did, and congratulations to you. Thank you, Governor. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Bill.
John Sununu.